ever long for more than you've got, 'cause baby, you've got you and me.
It's the review once again. And I'm gonna Google the word review because I don't know what it means. Review, because Retro Remix Review was a band that I used to like. Review definition. Review. A light theatrical entertainment consisting of a series of short sketches, songs, and dances, typically dealing satirically with topical issues. Retro Remix Review was smoking some crack. They're just a band. They're just a cover band. Today I learned, I guess. Folks, fine figgity folks at home, we're gonna do some reviews today. I say this every time, and I'm sorry if people who are regulars to this stream are sick of hearing it, but this is not your typical stream. I will not be playing any games. I will be sitting here looking at a spreadsheet that I don't even have it open. Oh my god. I don't have it captured, whatever. I'll deal with that. One sec. Oh, I had to snort. Did that, like, fuck up my mic? I hope that didn't fuck up my mic. Let me know. I bumped the fucking thing. There's not even going to be music in the background of the stream. There's music right now, but I'm gonna be listening to probably ASMR. I found this really good, like, ear cleaning stuff that I'm gonna be listening to that gives me the good feelings. And I'm just gonna go down a list of games that I have streamed in the past, and we're gonna just give them a number rating, a quick verbal review, and whether or not I recommend the game. And all of this is my own personal experience with the games, my personal opinion. I'm not trying to be objective here because I think in the end it's basically impossible to be objective when reviewing games. I'd like to think someday I could do serious reviews, but I'm not going to start doing it until I, like, have a really good solid base of knowledge of, like, having played, like, a ton of different types of games from a ton of different eras of gaming history. And I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I do enjoy doing these little casual reviews. And I started this series ages ago, and by golly, I'm gonna finish it. It is, it's been going on for a while, and I do these very infrequently. I've been trying to, like, sort of get back on the train lately. I think I've been keeping up with it pretty well. And we're nearing the end of the list. So just to get this out of the way, we got some cool art here. This is from Yellow Alert. It's very rare that we get fan art for the review streams, but I really appreciate it. We got lots of fun details here. Let's see if I can list them all. We got a lovely portrait of Bella. We've got a lovely portrait of Lark. We've got a Half-Life health kit. We've got a blue shell from New Super Mario Brothers. One of my favorite power-ups. Let's see if I can remember their names. The Hubirds of Happiness, I believe, are these Rhythm Heaven birds. Godhead, we got the orange box with the Aperture Science logo on it. Box Slayer is in there, which is a big deep cut. Solaire's shield, I think, from Dark Souls, or just that, like, symbol. Does his shield have that sun on it? I genuinely don't remember. And then the trash is the 10K bucket from Peggle. Very good work, Yellow Alert. Thank you very much. And now we're going to get the spreadsheet open. Let's see if this just automatically captures. Crossing my fingers. Yes, there we go. So yeah, this is what it looks like so far. I mean, we've got through a lot of them. I think we're like 3/4 of the way done. at this point. 585 games, and there's some that I still haven't documented on here, but hold on. I'm so sorry, I have to snort again. People with a ton less experience with games than you review things with full confidence. That's absolutely true, and I look at reviews like that, and I feel like secondhand embarrassment, honestly. Oh, wait, do I have this open in a different window? I do. Hold on, let me close that one. There we go. I saw, because this box was like highlighted from another user. I was like, what the fuck is that? We're going to review Crazy Taxi today, but first I'm going to do Black Mesa. The way these are organized is kind of all over the place. And today we're going to be just doing sort of a grab bag. But we're getting to the point where these games are more recent games that I have played. These are like relatively recent. Bastion, Katana Zero, Closure, Little Inferno. And then there's going to be a period where like I put all the bullet hells together, or a lot of them at least. There's going to be a period where we're just doing those, and those will be kind of a blast from the past. We got a bunch of series down here, but we're catching up. We're catching up. Okay. So first, I put Black Mesa in here. I put it up in the list because it's near. I felt like it would be appropriate to put it with the other Half-Life games, even though it's not an officially developed Half-Life game. So Black Mesa. This is... Oh yeah, and by the way, this is going to be very visually uninteresting, so just, like, I don't know, put something on in the background. You guys are going to be able to see... This is my ASMR that I'm going to be listening to. I've been enjoying this channel recently, so if you want to listen along, you can do that. But anyway, just put this on in the background, honestly. Like, I fully endorse just listening to these while you, like, do chores or whatever. I don't know. Okay, Black Mesa. This is, to anybody who doesn't know, a fan-made mod. It's not even really a mod. It's just a game constructed from the ground up of Half-Life 1. Made by fans, and it's made in the Source engine, which is what Half-Life 2 runs in, all the Half-Life 2s. Sort of an enhanced version of the Source engine, but it still is basically Source. It's a very cool remake, and I feel... Here's an example of, like, I feel like I've failed as a reviewer already. I was thinking about this earlier. I have no idea if I think... Ultimately, a review of Black Mesa should include the concept of, like, should you play this game instead of playing Half-Life 1? And I honestly don't think I have an answer for that. Like, it's really hard for me to say because Half-Life 1 is such a special game, so near and dear to my heart. And it has so many unique things going for it. It's kind of a beautiful time capsule of the era of gaming that it came out in. And it's so iconic. I don't know, so many things. I feel it's almost like blasphemy to change certain things about Half-Life. Black Mesa is a very faithful recreation. Like, not even recreation, it's a very faithful, like, it stays pretty close to how original Half-Life works. Few things have been changed around here and there, mostly things that I approve of, but I still think, in my heart of hearts, I can't, in full confidence, say that it is something that can just replace Half-Life 1. I would almost say, and this is such a bullshit thing to say, but play both of them. Just play Half-Life and then play Black Mesa and go, ooh, interesting, at like comparing the two. That's like the ideal experience. But I don't know. I guess if you have a low tolerance for like low fidelity graphics and like compressed audio, and you don't want to go back and play original Half-Life, then I guess play Black Mesa. If you're looking to check it out, like, I'm thinking, like, if there's people who played Half-Life 2 and thought it was really amazing and went, I want to play the first one of these. And then you look back at like screenshots of Half-Life 1 and you go, oh my god, it looks like that? Like, what the fuck? I guess, personally, I think those people should just get over it and just play original Half-Life. Like, visual fidelity in games isn't everything, and sometimes it can be really fun to play something that looks old and crusty, but I guess in that case, maybe just play Black Mesa. I don't know. In the end, yes, I would recommend this game. Let's go into particulars here, though. Some of the tone of this game I felt was a little bit off. Half-Life 1, I said this while I was playing it. This is sort of a nitpick, but I still think this is valid. Half-Life 1 and 2, just the whole series, the official series, has a very cold and like clinical tone. And in particular the music of Half-Life 1, like it has a very like distinct sort of like 90s like drone and techno feel to it that I think really creates a cool atmosphere for Half-Life 1 that makes you feel sort of like desolate and like trapped. I don't know. Half-Life 1 is like a little bit of a horror game. Not really, but the whole Half-Life series has like a vein of horror running through it. Whereas Black Mesa, I feel, was a little too epic and a little bit too, like I kept saying like, oh, it's like Avatar music. And I've never even fucking seen Avatar, but like a lot of the music and the visuals were a little bit too like, whoa, it's so beautiful. Wow, look at how cool this is. Especially the Zen parts. And speaking of Zen, I feel like they went a little bit overboard with Zen. I feel like they made it a little too long. In original Half-Life, the Zen levels are often shit upon. Personally, I never had that much of an issue with them, but I know they were somewhat unfinished. And it's fine that they wanted to expand on it, but they made Zen like a third of the game. Like, they cut down on other parts of the game, like On a Rail, which is another sort of like hated portion of Half-Life 1, which is not so bad once you like have played the game a couple times, but the first playthrough is the most important, I think, in my opinion. Black Mesa just, it was a little overindulgent, and it just, like, Zen looked really cool. It was really interesting seeing how they brought back some stuff that was like underutilized in the first game or in the original Half-Life 1. That's cool and all, but there were certain things that where I was just like, can this just fucking end? like can the game just be over now? Like maybe it was because I have the preconceived notion that Zen should be a certain length, but it just kept going, and at a certain point I was just sick of it. There was some really cool stuff that they put in Zen, though. I liked the little floating amoebas that only appeared a tiny, tiny, tiny bit in the first Half-Life, but then they brought them back to appear like all over the place in Black Mesa Zen. That was really cool. The redone Nihilanthe fight, I think, was pretty amazing. All said and done, they did a much better job, because the Nihilanthe fight was just like bad in the original. It's like, again, something that on a replay you slightly know what you're doing, and it's a little less frustrating. But in Black Mesa, they made it so the Nihilanthe fight, the first time I was playing it, I was like, okay, this is good. It is much more enjoyable and like palatable when you don't really know what's going on. And they did a better job of teaching you, like the whole thing about breaking the crystals around the arena to incapacitate it. That was something that was, I want to say poorly communicated, but it just wasn't even communicated at all in the original game. Hold on, this is so gross, but I have sweat underneath my wrist brace, and I'm tearing off a paper towel to like stuff in there. One thing that was slightly disappointing to me in Black Mesa Zen, this is another like pretty big nitpick, but originally the fight with the Gonarch, the head crab mother, in the original game it's very janky, and there are parts where it feels like you're not doing damage to it, or you can like fuck up the progression of the fight because it's a fight that like changes locations a couple of times. And it just felt like very weird and unfinished. It kind of was the same way in Black Mesa, where they changed it a lot, and a lot of aspects of it were cooler, but maybe this was just a personal thing. Maybe I just got like some 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million glitch that made it broken, but it like I got soft locked at one point fighting the Gonarch, and like the music that is supposed to play when you're fighting the boss like failed to play, and there were a bunch of parts where I was like shooting it and I was like, am I hitting it? Is this actually doing damage to it? Is it just arbitrarily invincible here? It felt like all the issues that were in the original Gonarch fight, even though it got completely changed, all the issues that were in the original kind of came back in Black Mesa, and that was very disappointing to me. Maybe I just got unlucky there, but I was like, damn, you had an opportunity to fix the Gonarch fight, and it just like got bungled. So Zen was probably at least a little for their portfolio to prove they can level design, maybe. Because originally Black Mesa had a public release, and then it just didn't have the Zen levels. It just ended when you jumped into the portal. This is my understanding. I never played that original version. But it almost feels like they just made Zen huge to be like, oh, you know, yeah, we were working this whole time, like we were making Zen super cool. That's why we didn't include it in the original release. I don't know. That's probably not true. They probably had plans to make it this extravagant the whole time, but I even heard, I don't know if this is true, that they like worked with ex-Valve employees or like current Valve employees to like, I don't know, who had like scrapped ideas from Zen in the original. I don't know. But it wasn't all bad. There was some cool stuff. I really liked the part with the little like Vortigaunt city that you stumble upon. That was something that was just completely not in the original game at all. And that was handled really, really well. A couple of the little things that they did to tie the plots of Half-Life 1 and 2 together, such as making... Because I always got the impression when playing Half-Life 2, because I played Half-Life 2 first, but then going back and playing Half-Life 1, I'm like, okay, the black scientist at Black Mesa, which the scientists are randomized, so depending on... I don't know if some of them are scripted, but the black scientist, I think, is supposed to be Eli in Half-Life 2. I always got that impression. And there's the scientist that looks a hell of a lot like Kleiner, the bald one. I always thought that was supposed to be Kleiner, you know? And then in Black Mesa, they explicitly said, okay, yeah, 2 of the scientists that were in the test chamber at the very beginning with the resonance cascade, those were Kleiner and Eli. That was very cool. I enjoyed that. And they could have gone way further with like putting a bunch of hints. I think they made a little Magnuson reference to, because in like Half-Life 2 Episode 2, Magnuson goes, oh, maybe I'll forgive you for that thing you did to my casserole. And they made it so when you fuck with the casserole in the microwave in that one like lunchroom, they go, oh, you know, you pissed off Magnuson. Great job, Gordon, or something like that. And I think they say like, oh, you know who's going to be pissed about that one, or some shit like that. And I thought that was very cute. And they could have gone way further with shit like that, but really it's just Eli, Kleiner, Magnuson, and the Vortigaunts got expanded on just a little bit. And I felt that was perfectly satisfactory. That was great. They really handled that with tact and class. A lot of the extra enemy types that they introduced in Zen were really cool too, for the record. I was totally on board with those. Some of the Zen segments were really, really cool, really interesting puzzles. I like that room where you're like raising the water level over and over again, and like the water barnacles keep raising their tentacles up to like adjust to the new water level. Like all that stuff was very cool. The game is very detailed. I loved the headcrab zombies that are attached to bodies that have an HEV suit. That was a really interesting addition. Lots of cool stuff. But then there was some other parts where I was just like, why is this in the game? Like that part where you're like wandering around that like crystal zone and you need to like direct lasers into the middle, if anybody knows what I'm talking about. Some of those parts just felt like a waste of fucking time. and like some of the later like factory segments just felt weird. And also, the difficulty in Black Mesa I thought was weird. This was something I kind of ranted about. One of the weirdest difficulty selections I've ever seen in a fucking video game. It goes normal, then Black Mesa, and then hard. And I think, I'm still not sure to this day, but I think normal is supposed to be like normal mode in original Half-Life. Black Mesa is supposed to be like this new, tweaked, adjusted difficulty mode that they felt was better for the AI of the things in Black Mesa, because the AI is slightly different. To my understanding, the AI of like the HEV soldiers and shit like that, or what, the HEV suit, what are the soldiers? I'm blanking on their names. The enemy soldiers, they didn't just straight port their AI over. It's more like they tweaked and like spit shined the Combine AI from Half-Life 2 instead, meaning crucially they can move and shoot at the same time, which threw me off so much. It's like this weird tweaked difficulty mode that's supposed to like better suit the mechanics of Black Mesa. HECU. There you go. Thank you. And so that middle difficulty mode is what I started out the game on, and it includes new things like Vortigaunts are capable of like dodging. They have like a dodge move that's really fucking annoying. And it felt just really brutal and punishing. And the instant like halfway through the game, I swapped off that and went to normal mode. And I really, really was thankful that I did that. And frankly, the rest of the game was basically a cakewalk after I switched to normal mode, but I didn't mind because it was just becoming incredibly frustrating, dying over and over and over again on Black Mesa mode. I didn't even try hard mode. I don't know if it's like comparable to Black Mesa mode or if it's even harder. Difficult to say because they phrased it so fucking weirdly. But I think hard mode is supposed to be like hard mode from the original Half-Life 1. Not certain. But it was just strange. I felt like there was no difficulty mode that was actually perfectly suited to me, where it would be a meaty challenge, but then not be frustrating. The moment you learn how to abuse the HECU grunts in Half-Life 1, the game gets super easy. I would maybe agree with that, like the whole thing where you can't, if you realize that they can't run and shoot at the same time, it is a lot easier to like exploit them. I don't know, they still get the jump on me sometimes, but and they've got quite advanced AI, but yeah, the whole running and shooting thing really cripples them. So I don't know. It never felt perfectly tweaked. I don't know. Anyway, I have rambled long enough. The game visually looks very cool. I really hate to say this, but it almost looks a little bit dated still because, you know, this project was started like a fucking decade ago, I'm pretty sure, and now the Source engine is showing its age a slight amount. I don't really care, personally, but it's almost kind of tragic that the game that is meant to be like a modern update still feels ever so slightly dated by being in the Source engine. It looks beautiful, though. Like, the game looks great. There's a couple tiny little things here and there where I'm like, that's not like up to the Valve standard of quality. There were a few things that were a little bit jank here and there, but for the most part, it was cool. It was a very cool experience. And a lot of the joy that I got from this game was just from comparing it to Half-Life 1. And I don't know, it'll probably be a completely different experience for other people, other players, or people who are not familiar with Half-Life 1 playing through this. That's just my personal experience. 8.5? Give it an 8.5? Maybe an 8? I don't know. It's a really solid game, especially like, I'll give it an 8. Zen was just a little too overindulgent for me, and the tonal issues kind of knock it down too, and the difficulty. But it is really solid, and it's very, very impressive considering it's a fan project. That's the huge thing, is like, damn. And I know people are going to say, like, oh, you gave Black Mesa the same score as Lost Coast. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. You're not meant to compare them like that. It's just, I don't know. I gave Lost Coast an 8. Whatever. Let's move on. I think that's fair. Lost Coast is cool. It's just short. Okay, now we're going all the way down. Black Mesa, incredibly solid. A few issues here and there. Very interesting overall. It was not disappointing. Not by a long shot. Okay, Crazy Taxi, or should I say, Crazy Taxi! This was the PC port that is on Steam. I did not play the arcade version or the Dreamcast version. I think the Steam ports are just direct ports of the Dreamcast version with like tweaks here and there, and they're basically just more broken, I think. I don't know. But the PC version of Crazy Taxi felt fundamentally a little weird to me. There was some kind of, I don't know if I just sucked at the game, but there was this kind of like drift turn thing that they kept telling me to do, and I went into like the tutorial mode, and I just, for the fucking life of me, could not pull it off, and it felt like glitchy. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, I think Crazy Taxi, the music was different in the PC port. I think somebody commented on the VOD and said, oh, you played the PC version that has like different music. I thought the music was fine in the PC port, but it was still concerning to hear that. Maybe I should have looked this up before the stream. But I heard that the music was changed for like licensing issue reasons, which is sad if true. And overall, I wouldn't even really give, even without the technical issues of the PC port, like the PC port, the fucking like draw distance was crazy, Lamau crazy. There was a part where the road just fucking disappeared. That was strange. That was just more funny than anything else. But mostly it was the draw distance and like the controls just felt a little weird and broken. I wouldn't have even, I think even if I was playing like the standard like arcade version of this game or the Dreamcast version of this game, I don't think I would give it that high of a rating. It is a fun arcadey experience for a little bit, and then I feel like there's no need to play it for more than like a couple hours, maybe. It's, I don't know. It's like you pick up passengers, they go, take me here. You follow your GPS, and you smash into other cars, and everything's very goofy and crazy, and then that's it. That's just the whole game, basically. Pretty simple. It has a cool vibe to it. I enjoy the sort of like over-the-top vibe. I enjoy that they didn't feel super committed to making like realistic car physics. They made it more like cartoony and fun to drive. I think it's impossible for you to flip your vehicle in this game. I found that to be perfectly satisfactory. Like I don't need the car physics to be completely realistic. It just needs to be fun. And this game is fun. It's just nothing exceptional. And keep in mind that this number rating that I'm gonna give is of the PC port that I played that felt like it had issues. I don't know, like a 6. Give it like a 6, I think. It was whatever. It was truly whatever. Wouldn't recommend the PC port, but maybe if you can find the arcade version or the Dreamcast version, then maybe do that. I don't know. Okay, now we're getting into, this is a Whack Games segment. So a lot of these are very short games. So keep in mind again that the number ratings are not meant to be compared to other number ratings. A Firm Handshake, this one was cool, and normally you guys know that I don't really like to complain about a game being too short, but this one was too fucking short. It felt like it didn't reach its potential. it's just a silly little surreal game about like going to shake somebody's hand, and I I think were there like 5 different like levels, open quotes levels, or like situations in it, and then that was like it. It was ridiculously short, and it got very silly for a couple of them, but I felt like it could have gone so much further. It felt like a bad version of like it was trying to go for the same kind of feel as like Plug and Play or Kids, which I think are excellent games, but it just didn't go on for long enough, and it didn't express really that many ideas, and it just left me wanting more in sort of an unsatisfying way. I would not personally recommend this one. What was there was very cool and kind of funny, but it just was it was like eating a Pringle. So I don't know. Give it like a 4. It was not great. I was disappointed, sorely disappointed, because I saw like a brief trailer for it, and I was like, oh, that looks exactly like the sort of silly, wacky shit that I want to play. And then it just was kind of like, okay, whatever. Other side, this was a very, I want to call it a stonery game. This one had, to me, it had some technical issues. I almost kind of want to look back at the VOD of this and just see, is that unprofessional? Just because it had a lot of like trippy visuals, and it had like 1 or 2 puzzles, but it was overall very short, and also didn't really express that many ideas. It just had interesting visuals, and it had like this weird, I was like, it had some sort of like weird visual effect that I didn't like. It was like very stuttery for me, and this might have just been something where it was like incompatible with my own computer. But when moving around, it just had this weird like stuttering effect to it that I found very distracting, and it like almost gave me a headache. And it's basically just a surreal looking game with cool post-processing visual effects, very neat looking rooms, kind of ruined by the fact that it has this weird stuttering effect. But there's some cool imagery and like 3 puzzles, I think, in the game. And then it just ends, and it doesn't really seem to have anything to say. It doesn't really seem to have any sort of like message or anything. It just sort of exists, shows you some trippy imagery, and then you're done. It's a first-person walking simulator. So, no, would not recommend. It's inoffensive, but it just didn't really have anything beyond cool-looking visuals, which, I don't know. Cool-looking visuals can be nice, but on its own, it was whatever. This felt like something that could have been maybe an exhibit. You remember the Zion Garden? That was like a virtual museum, and it was a big collaboration effort with like a bunch of different people. It could have been a nice room in the Zion Garden, but I don't know. I'm searching my feelings deep into my heart of hearts. I kind of want to give this one also a 4. But I don't even think it was as cool as A Firm Handshake. I would give this like a 3. It had some neat stuff. The visuals are what you go to this for. But again, it was like all stuttery and weird, and it felt like if it was a lot smoother, then I could have appreciated it more. Affinity, this was, if memory serves, let me just check the VOD. Yeah, it's the one where you're fitting shapes together. It's basically a puzzle game. It's like a weird, trippy puzzle, like literally like jigsaw puzzle, where you're making these various shapes out of a bunch of smaller shapes. It was fine. I really don't have a lot to say about this one at all. The visuals are very simple, sort of like vector graphics. And I don't know, it was slightly, like, this was one where I just got bored and just stopped playing it. I think there's a bunch of levels, but I don't really see any reason to play this game for longer than, like, a few minutes. It was just kind of like, okay, you put together these puzzles. Sometimes you get stumped for a little bit, and then you find where everything fits together, and you get an idea of what the object you're supposed to be creating is, and then you have a little, like, aha moment. But those were very rare. It was mostly just, like, putting things together as they obviously look like they should go, and then going, oh, okay, that's a fucking tree. Cool, I made a tree. It didn't really have anything special about it. And I kind of like blow through these whack games sometimes, because a lot of them I just don't really have much to say because they're so simple. 3 again. No, let's give this no. I think 3.5 is perfect for this one. Also would not recommend. The Zion Garden is only one of 3 of the Zion museums. One came out before, the other came out last year after the garden. I might check out the other ones. Maybe. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. The one that I played was really, really cool. I kind of wish there were more things like that. I've talked about, especially with the whack games that I review, there's certain, like, I would love to make like a collection of like the best whack games, because I think a lot of these games are really, really cool, but there's no reason to like seek them out and download them and then get like 3 minutes of enjoyment out of it. So maybe if there was a way like that you could, what do they call that? When you like conveniently bundle things together, like curate things, if they were like curated, that would be really cool. Like out of this list, I think Il Filo Condatore, or what, Condatore, or however the fuck you're supposed to pronounce this, that would go into like the collection if I were to make like a whack games collection. But that would be so, I would not feel comfortable doing that, because it's other people's hard work. Like, I can't just sell, or, you know, I wouldn't sell it, but I can't just like give out other people's games in a bundle and just be like, yeah, this is the Grapefruit Whack Games bundle. So whatever. That's something I constantly think about when I'm reviewing these. Is curation could get a lot of these games the attention that they deserve, because a lot of them are not substantial enough experiences to warrant, you know, being a game on Steam that a bunch of people play. But it would be at least cool to give them some exposure. I don't know. Central Limit Theorem. This was like a defense shooter game, kind of like Missile Command, except it's, instead of defending the bottom of the screen, you're defending the center of the screen, and you play as this little gun that orbits around the center. This game looked cool, and I think had cool music. I'm gonna go to the VOD and listen for a second. Yeah, it had pretty cool music, very like upbeat, energetic music. But it's basically just an arcade-style shooter game. It's neat enough. Kind of reminds me of Tempest a little bit, like Atari Tempest, without the like perspective thing. There's all these basic shapes that are coming at you. Each shape has a different sort of movement pattern, and you're trying to keep them from reaching the center. And they all leave these like colored trails behind them, which over the course of the game creates this sort of trippy-looking visual effect of all these overlapping color trails of the different enemies that you've killed. Which kind of increases the difficulty of the game over time, too, because it's like hard to tell what the fuck's going on. It's a cool one. I would say this is a solid arcadey experience. It is nothing special, but it was inoffensive. I'm very on the fence about recommending this one. Again, if it was curated somewhere, or if you didn't have to like seek it out, I would say it's a little more worth playing. I'd give it like a 5. It was cool. It was like perfectly fine. Okay. In Sync. This one, this was like ostensibly a rhythm game. This one left me very frustrated, and partially, I'm going to admit that part of that is because like Twitch and OBS had this weird fucking error while I was playing this game that made it so like the visuals, it was like the stream like lagged behind by like half a fucking hour. There was some unfucking describable issue that happened while I was streaming this game. But In Sync it's a neat idea. It's like a claymation game where you have these 4 wooden blocks that are all pointing towards the center, and there's like this hole in the center, and these different colored shapes come down the blocks, and you have to sort of like, it's kind of like a Rhythm Heaven minigame. It reminds me of one, at least. The blocks sort of like do these cool little animations and like scoot towards the center of the screen, and then you have to time it perfectly and like bump them into the hole, basically. And the game, I think, claims to be a rhythm game, but I kept feeling like rhythm had nothing to do with it, or like plenty of the blocks that you're bumping into the hole in the center of the screen are just not on beat, and that a lot of it is just you have to rely mostly on the visual cues. I felt like this was a game where it had really, really cool art and animation and like style and cool music too, but the actual gameplay, it felt like it failed as a rhythm game. I don't know, maybe I'm making up maybe I'm like gaslighting the developers of this game or something. Maybe they never actually claimed that it was a rhythm game, but it felt like it was supposed to have like a rhythmic feel to it, because each level is like you have to wait for a full song to play through. But it just felt like broken in the sense that the notes didn't actually line up on the beats, or the little, I don't even know what to call them. The little shapes didn't actually line up on the beats. It was kind of disappointing and frustrating in that sense. But it had cool animation, cool art. Just watching all the different animations of the little shapes like scooting forward and doing trippy, weird things was very cool. But in the end, it ended up frustrating me, and not just because the stream fucked up. Okay. I don't know. A lot of these are going to be in the 3 range. I'm going to give that one a 3 as well. This one was really bad. No, straight away. I thought this one was going to be cooler than it actually was. It's basically a text adventure. It's like you play as, I don't even want to say play as, but your character is in a car on the edge of a cliff, like teetering on the edge of a cliff, and it's like the last thoughts of this person as they're teetering on the edge. I never actually finished this game because it was just tedious and boring. It was just a bunch of dialogue. It was like different dialogue options. I think it's like a deer walks up to you and starts like having a conversation with you or something, and it was just, I remember almost nothing about this game because I feel like the dialogue was just complete fucking drivel and didn't keep me invested at all. I kind of thought from the look of it that it was going to be like some philosophical thing, thinking about like death and stuff, but it just felt like frustrating. Like I would have liked it more if it was like a bunch of pretentious bullshit, but it just felt like nothing. It just felt like noise. Which is funny because it says far from noise. I didn't even I didn't even mean to do that. I just came up with that on my own. It was so fucking boring and annoying, and I'm so sorry. I hate hating on an indie game because anything with an original idea is in some way admirable, but this one was just so poorly executed. It just was so bad, and I remember everybody in chat being like, next game, dude, this is so bad, like, why are you playing this? It was really rough. I don't know, I give this like a 1 out of 10. It was, I can't think of something good to say about it. It looked okay, I guess. It looked okay visually, but it's one screen. They just had it was just a car teetering, whatever. Okay, now this Il Filo Conduttore, this one was fucking awesome. This one, it's hard to even describe. It was like a bunch of real images of like fruits and like wooden balls and like string and stuff. This was a game kind of like Windowsill, where everything has a very kinesthetic, tactile feel to it. It's really hard to describe what the fuck this game even was. It's just a neat little bit of like sound and sensation that didn't really feel like it meant anything, but it was just a little quirky indie game that had a lot of charm to it and was very satisfying to play. It was very short, but it was one of those ones, like, unlike Firm Handshake, I felt like this one explored plenty of ideas and covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. And it was a very satisfying experience. This is the only one out of this stream of whack games that I would recommend. I don't know, I'd give it like an 8. It was cool. It was really cool. Simple, short, didn't really mean anything, I don't think. Maybe you could dig into it, but I don't know. It was it doesn't need to mean anything. It was just neat. I don't know. 8 just feels like the right number. Don't ask me to rationalize that 8. It just feels like the right number for this. It was very cool. And yes, I know that was the same score I gave Black Mesa, but just don't think about it. Just don't compare them. Like, the number is not like the quality and amount of work that went into the game. It's just the amount that I enjoyed it, regardless of length. Okay. Now, we're going to get to, this is a popular one, Vampire Survivors. This, I guess I should disclose that this was before the 1.0 update of the game. It was, which I don't think there's a huge amount of difference at its core. I think the updates just added more content and balance changes, basically, to my knowledge. This was a game of extremes for me. Of course I don't like how it looks. Does anybody enjoy the visual style of Vampire Survivors? It looks ugly as sin. I remember hearing a rumor, I don't know if this was true or not, that they got in trouble for like using a default like Castlevania aesthetic asset pack or something for some of the sprites of the characters. It just looks really poopy and doesn't really have any sort of like style of its own. The title screen and the game, like the gameplay, look completely fucking different, and neither of them look terribly good. I remember when playing it, I was like, I would love it if they could add graphics to the game, because as it stands, like, it may as well be a game constructed from like ASCII text, for how much it is like visually striking. It just kind of looks like a fucking mess. But the gameplay is very satisfying. It is very simple. I mean, you've played it. Most of you watching have played it. It's an insanely cheap game. It's like $3 or some shit. I think it got bumped up to $5 maybe, or maybe that's with the DLC or some shit. Incredibly cheap game. Very satisfying. It taps into that addictive part of your brain really well, to the point where I feel like it's a mercy that there are no microtransactions in this game, because if they wanted to, they could make so much fucking money off of this if they like made a predatory like free-to-play monetization scheme. They could suck so much money out of people's wallets from this game. So it is satisfying. It is at its core simple, but it has a lot of added complexity around that core. Most weapons that you get in this game, you don't even have to aim or press a fire button. They just automatically shoot. I don't think there's anything where you have to press a fire button. Some of them, like 1 or 2 things, you have to aim. And otherwise, everything just automatically happens. And, you know, you can kind of aim, like, you know, you can aim the whip by positioning yourself properly. It's mostly positioning rather than aiming. Which is a very... I can't really think of another game that has that style. I'm sure there are some, but it's very cool. Very fun. It is enjoyable figuring out the different like synergies, and there's a bunch of stuff where you like evolving, is that what they call it? Like evolving the weapons to like they ascend to like a better state where like the whip can heal you and stuff like that. Very cool, very fun and satisfying to figure that stuff out. At the same time, I have a lot of issues with this game. One of the things is that I don't like unlocking basic features of the game. Like, this was one where, like, you have to unlock the ability to use a map and shit like that. And, like, all the things, you have to unlock certain types of upgrades. You have to play a bunch in order to get currency to buy permanent upgrades. I know technically the Binding of Isaac has stuff similar to this, but I think the way Binding of Isaac does it is a lot less shitty. But I enjoy just, like, it kind of felt like how in certain fighting games you have to unlock characters, and I can't stand that shit. Like, when I'm playing Smash Brothers, I just want to play all the characters. I don't want to play a bunch of matches as characters that I don't give a shit about to unlock the characters that I actually give a shit about. I don't know. Like, again, a lot of this is the, the same as the way Binding of Isaac does it, technically, but it just felt, it was just a lot less satisfying in Vampire Survivors, personally, for me. I couldn't even put my finger on exactly why. Certain things like, unlocking the ability to purchase certain upgrades, unlocking the ability to use the fucking map, and other stuff like that, that felt dumb. Isn't it, don't you get, like, you unlock, like, menu music or something, too? Maybe I'm imagining that one. The music's good, by the way. The music is good in this game. The music is, like, it makes me wonder if the people who developed the game just bought stock music to play in the game, because it's such, at such odds with the visual, like, style of the game. But I really don't like just, somebody said it takes like 2 to 3 hours for the game to actually start. Yeah, it just feels like the first few runs that you do, you're almost destined to fail, especially if you're a newcomer to the game, because you've not unlocked like anything that will be a permanent upgrade that will help later on. Because like in Isaac, I'll put it this way. Nobody's like attacking me about this, but I'm sort of attacking myself about this. In Isaac, it's like you unlock qualitative things, where it's like an item that does something new that you have the potential to find. Whereas in Vampire Survivors, it's like you unlock quantitative things that just are straight up, you're playing the same character, but they are better. Like, you just start off with a bigger advantage, even if you're playing the exact same character. You also unlock characters. I don't mind that as much, but the whole thing with, like, you, like, spend gold to, like, buy upgrades that you use at the beginning of a round, I just didn't like that. So, that stuff felt weird and unsatisfying to me. Stuff like that was basically the only reason that I streamed this game 3 times as opposed to just once, I feel like. Maybe that's copium, maybe I would have streamed it 3 times anyway, because it is addictive, but I originally just meant to do a single stream quick look at it, but it ended up being 3 streams because I felt like I was barely even playing the game the first time I played it. So, another thing that I don't really like is, and again, a lot of roguelike type games do this, but, and fuck you, roguelike, fuck you, roguelike. I don't enjoy the way that it, like, I feel almost violated by the way that this game hacks my brain, with, like, whenever you get a treasure chest, it has that random chance to be like a super treasure chest, and you get that insane, like, the animation when you're opening the treasure chest, it feels like a gacha game a little bit. like they have, it has like gotcha vibes to it almost, which feels a little bit scummy to me. Again, if they put micropayments in this game, they could probably fucking like own the entire world with the money that they would make. But it just felt, I don't know. I'm really having trouble putting my words into thought, or my thoughts into words here. I just didn't enjoy that aspect of it. It's much more satisfying in Isaac when you just like find a really good item, as opposed to in Vampire Survivors when the game just rolls a coin or rolls a dice and says, yeah, instead of 3 items you got 5, or instead of 1 you got 3. You know, like it just feels like I don't know. Qualitative versus quantitative. I know in Isaac, you know, there are certain items that are just objectively better than others as well, but Vampire Survivors, it just felt like they were dangling a carrot in front of my face for a lot of the game, and that was frustrating to me. In the end, sure. If I could write sure here in the recommend spot, I would. I'm not going to do that. I'd pull that sort of bullshit on the Flash game review streams, but here, yes, I guess, but it has its issues. I think the visual style is just garbage, and it has like tonal issues too. Like sometimes it feels very like serious and epic, and other times it feels very like jokey and sarcastic, and I wish that they had just like nailed down a solid tone to just go for the entire game. But whatever. There's a lot of I like the fact that there's several levels, there's several different like little bonus stages that you can do. Those are fun, those are interesting. Love the bone zone, love Bone Levin. I don't know, it's a neat game with some issues and some things that just sort of kept me from playing it nearly as much as I'd play something like Isaac, which I think is a comparable experience in a way. Give it like a 7. I feel like a 7 is generous. Let's do a 7. It's cool. It's a cool game. 20 Minutes Till Dawn. This is, I think, what can only be described as one of many Vampire Survivors clones. It is not a bad game by any means. I didn't like this one as much as Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors, you have to survive for 30 minutes. 20 Minutes Till Dawn, you of course have to survive for 20 minutes. I kind of wish Vampire Survivors was for 20 minutes, but not so much that I want to play 20 Minutes Till Dawn. This one you actually have to aim, which I kind of like in a way. I don't know. Being able to, but at the same time in Vampire Survivors, there was almost never a point where I was like, oh man, I really wish I could aim these attacks, because a lot of the time you can just position yourself in such a way that the enemies get hit by things anyway. But 20 Minutes Till Dawn has actual aiming, and you play as like anime girl OCs, and you fight wave after wave after wave of like the same 3 or 4 enemies. If nothing else, Vampire Survivors has variety, but 20 Minutes Till Dawn, in the form that I played it when I played it, the variety, the visual variety of the enemies are so utterly dull. Like there's just so many of the same enemy over and over and over again, whereas Vampire Survivors has a ton of variety in that category. 20 Minutes Till Dawn just felt mind-numbing in that sense. It does have, I think, a better visual style than Vampire Survivors, but in a way Vampire Survivors kind of has it beat visually, just because it has more variety. It's uglier, but it has more variety, whereas 20 Minutes Till Dawn looks better, but is just so dull a lot of the time. And it has unique bosses with actual patterns that you have to actually learn, which I think is a bit of a step up from Vampire Survivors. But I don't know. I didn't like it as much. I didn't play this one for very long. I think it was just a one-off stream. But it's certainly not an offensively bad or, you know, unpolished experience. And this was another one that I think was in like early access or something. Like, I did not mean to type 0 there. I'm really on the fence about whether or not to recommend this one. I'm going to go ahead and say no, because Vampire Survivors is just better, in my opinion, personally. But, I don't know. At 20 Minutes Till Dawn, certain things I think are better than Vampire Survivors, but he fucking hates the game. 0 out of 10. The first 0 out of 10. I don't know, we'll give this one like a 6 or something. Sure. Yeah, 6 is fine. 6 is fine. I feel like 6 is like, the game is functional, and there's nothing that I explicitly like hate about it. Most of the time. So, you know, it's not, there's not hard and fast rules here, but I feel like that's, a 6 is typically like, the game is functional, and I don't hate it, but there was really nothing for me to love. Yeah, there's no 0s on this list. I only went as low as 1. And I think there's a few 10s, so maybe, you know, theoretically there could be 0s. If I could give a 0, I would probably give it to Joshua, this game right here. But whatever. That's probably my most, like, hated game on the list. Blues Brothers 2000 was pretty bad. Power Punch 2 might also be deserving of a 0, but whatever, I don't care. I think it's 0 out of 10 implies that there's like nothing. You know, 1 is like, you at least made a video game, but it was just really bad. Wow, this section is bad. Yeah, you want to know why? You want to know why that section is so bad? Let me demonstrate. That's why, right there. Those 3 letters, NES. It was a bunch of NES shovelware, and like, yeah, Tetris got an 8, and Contra got a 6.5, but yeah, NES games, typically not very good. There's like 10 really great NES games, and then the rest of them are bad, basically. Okay, hold on. I gotta restart my, there we go. This is only 40 minutes. Can I put it on like loop? You can, yeah, loop, there you go. How long we been going? Over an hour, Jesus Christ. I'm gonna try to get down to here today. I don't know if I'm gonna do that, but that's the goal. And then this whole section is a bunch of bullet hell games, and that'll probably take up the entirety of next stream. And then the stream after that, we get to like the really juicy shit. Every Sonic game I've streamed, every Metal Slug game I've streamed, all the Chex Quest. I know everybody's looking forward to Chex Quest, Kingsfield, and then like these games right here, all the FromSoft games, that's gonna be its own stream. Just reviewing Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, and the Dark Souls Enemy Randomizer mod, which was very cool. But and then we got all the fucking Humongous Entertainment games, all the PopCap games, and then the Street Fighter series. This is not up to date, by the way. I haven't added like CVS2 and shit there, but whatever. And in fact, I think technically, even after I get to 1,000 Heads Among the Trees, there's going to be a few more. Yeah, Snipperclips, Fortnite, Placid Plastic Duck Simulator Duck Game, and Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed Collection. Those will probably be reviewed next stream of this as well, before I get on to the bullet hells. We'll see, though. I just want to lump all the bullet hells together because there's so many of them that I just don't even remember what the fuck their deal is. Like, I don't think I remember a single thing about this one, for instance. Actually, was this the, like, steampunk-esque looking one? I don't even remember. Have you not tried Sonic Mania yet? And then somebody replied to that saying he hasn't, but I doubt that'd change his opinion on Sonic games. Guys, discussing Sonic games is so fucked. They're all individual games. I don't have this, like, blanket opinion of the whole series. I'm ranking individual games. People gotta get this into their heads that beyond, like, a small amount of people, like Sonic haters or whatever, most people just have opinions on individual games rather than a series as a whole. There's this perceived like bias against Sonic, and I mean a lot of it is just because there's a lot of poopy Sonic games. Can we all agree that there's a lot of poopy Sonic games? A lot of them are really 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 bad, and Sonic is an obnoxious character. But like you'll see when I get to these games, I'm gonna try to rank them pretty fairly. This one's pretty good. These two are pretty amazing. Some of the best aged retro games I've ever fucking played. This one shows its age, but it's a classic. These two are poopy. They're all individuals. I've heard Sonic Mania is very good. I don't think it will change my opinion on Sonic games because I don't have an opinion on Sonic games just as a whole. That's silly. Yeah, like, does anybody just have an opinion on Mario games? What's your opinion on Mario games? Well, there's a bunch of them. Some of them suck, some of them are great. Come on, give me a break. Sorry, that was a little too, like, aggressive, but Sonic discourse is so fucked. Anyway. Bastion. Am I done with 20 minutes till dawn? I'm done with 20 minutes till dawn. He hates Mario. Or, no, hate Mario. Sorry. Anyway, Bastion. This is a very cool game. This, a lot of people, this is by Supergiant. Is it Supergiant or Supermassive? There's two different studios. There's Supergiant, I think it's Supergiant. Yeah. And Supergiant Games has a very specific style. They're clearly very comfortable making top-down, isometric, hand-painted visual plus 3D models here and there games with great writing and great voice acting. This is their style, and they have hardly deviated from it the entire time they've made games. This is the only one... Bastion is the only one that I have played fully. I've played a little bit of Transistor, and I've of course heard that Hades is very, very good. I've heard all the things about Hades. I will play Hades eventually. I've also heard some things about Pyre, but nobody seems to care about Pyre. This is a great game. It maybe has some issues, but overall, I just find it to be a fantastic experience. It's this fantasy story about this kid wandering through the pieces of a broken world, trying to repair it again, and there's many twists and turns in the plot. A couple of really big twists and turns. Maybe a twist and a turn. That sort of make the plot more complicated and make it bring some like cool moral ambiguity into it in a way that is very thoughtful. I feel like this game, you know how I say some games don't really have much to say. I feel like Bastion has a lot to say morally, and just it tries to get you to think a lot, and I love games that do that. Yes, I would recommend this game. It is visually pretty beautiful. It kind of looks like League of Legends a little bit. Like it has like MOBA vibes, I think, just visually, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. League is a cool looking game. It has this amazing narrator who has a beautiful voice, who with really, really like well-written lines. It is so satisfying listening to him narrate your every move in this game. There's some cute little like optional dialogue depending on actions that you take in the game. Those are all very cool. One of my favorite details is like you only have 2 weapon slots in this game, and there's a custom line of dialogue for every combination of 2 weapons in the entire game. And that's just so cool to me. And he has some cool, pithy little thing to say about every single combination of weapons. That's so neat. The combat is quite satisfying. Sometimes it can feel kind of like mindless, I guess. but there is strategy to it. A lot of it is just kiting enemies, basically. But the difference, the number of weapons that you can get, and the different like upgrade trees for those weapons, I feel like it's just enough complexity that you can have plenty of different play styles, and not so much complexity that just feels overwhelming. A lot of times I feel intimidated by like skill trees and stuff in games. Here it's like the perfect perfect balance of simplicity and complexity that made me really enjoy it. Looks great, fucking phenomenal soundtrack. The kid just rages for a while. Yeah. Amazing soundtrack. So fucking cool. Yes, some of it sounds like the Mythbusters music, but that's not a bad thing. Mythbusters music is cool. Fuck you. It's a great, great game. It is a feast for the eyes and ears in a lot of ways, and it makes you think. Fucking makes you think. It's one of those stories that actually has, like, something to say, and is not just a bunch of arcadey sights and sounds for you to enjoy and then forget about. It really sticks with you, I think, a lot of this game. So yeah, amazing game. I don't know. I want to give it like a 9, maybe. Let's give it an 8.5. I'd give it a 9. I've been describing it, and it's amazing. It's an amazing game, and I've heard when I was streaming this game, this is something I started to say at the beginning of the review and then forgot to say. People were... I'm just going to take off my wrist brace. There's no point in me wearing this thing. Not even doing anything with my hand. People were like, wow, you know, looking back at this game after playing Transistor and Hades and Pyre, it really comes across kind of basic, you know? So it's kind of a similar thing to how people were saying when I was playing through Undertale on stream. They were like, wow, comparing this to Deltarune, it just looks so like rudimentary. But I still think Bastion is a fantastic experience. It looks really cool. It sounds really cool. Some of the optional side content can get a bit tedious, I think. Like some of the dream levels are just kind of boring and long, but they have cool lore in them, I guess. I don't know. Struggling to find like nitpicks for this. Like some parts of the game don't visually, it's aged a little bit, and it's not like the best art style ever made or anything, but it just looks really clean and cool. Great game. Fucking great game. I didn't, as I was playing it, I wasn't thinking like, oh, this is a 9 out of 10 game, but thinking back on it, yeah, it's a 9 out of 10 game. What a great game. Katana Zero. This is a fantastic game. I was shocked at how much I liked this game, because I heard from a lot of people, oh, it's like Hotline Miami, but like 2D. And I feel as though Hotline Miami in particular is one of those games where so many games have tried to do Hotline Miami, but blank, like first-person shooter Hotline Miami or whatever. Hotline Miami, but you're a monkey. Hotline Miami, but it's bad, etc. And Hotline Miami has a very specific, special sauce to it that that is hard to replicate. And I think for a game, like, games shouldn't just try to ape it. They should do their own thing. And Katana Zero does do its own thing. From chat, whoever said that it was like Hotline Miami should be shot. I mean, after saying all that, I'm going to double back and say one of my biggest complaints about this game was still, even considering all that I just said, how it like forges its own identity beyond Hotline Miami, there was so much shit in this game where I was like, could you have changed that just a little bit from your obvious inspiration from Hotline Miami? Like, I want to like look back at my playthrough of it and make like a huge, exhaustive fucking list of tons and tons and tons and tons of things, specific details, where I'm like, that's so Hotline Miami-esque. Because I think, the gameplay format is very similar. You're going through, it's just that it's 2D side-scrolling instead of a top-down, like, floor plan view. A lot of what makes Hotline Miami great is the aesthetics. The gameplay is also great in Hotline Miami, but a lot of it is the story and the aesthetics. That's the stuff where Katana Zero branches off and does its own thing. For the most part. Even Katana Zero has the fucking main character be a Vietnam proxy war veteran, but whatever. Which is sort of a Hotline Miami 2 thing, but whatever. There were so many things where I was like, man, couldn't you just varied this a tiny bit from the inspiration that you had from Hotline Miami? But whatever, like, in the end, that's kind of a nitpick. People are allowed to be inspired by games. I really like it when a game just feels like a fucking breath of fresh air, like, entirely, where it's like, wow, this is nothing like anything that I've played before. But it just kept reminding me of Hotline Miami over and over and over again. Just from, like, little things. All the little things added up. I don't know. This is a weird point to ramble on about. Yes, I would absolutely recommend this game. This game had a very engaging story. I think one of the big differences from Hotline Miami is that you play a very active role. Like, the main character in Hotline Miami is very passive. In this game, you are very active, and your character talks, and you have different dialogue options. You can act certain ways. You can sort of role play as your character, depending on how you want to respond to the world of the game and to how people are talking to you. I got really into that when I was first playing it, and I kind of tried to... hold on, I gotta catch my breath. I was really engaged with the story and a lot of the dialogue options. Like, it has this really unique dialogue system. Maybe other games have done something like this, but it's like when another person is talking, who is not the main character, you have one dialogue option that's in red, and you see this little bar, and part of the bar is in red and the rest of it is like gray. And if you wait for the person to speak, this little, like, progress thing fills up the red bar, and then once you get to the gray part of the bar, a bunch of other dialogue options show up. But you can interrupt the person while they're talking if you select the one red option. And that one little feature was so cool to me, and I thought that was so interesting, and it got me so engaged because I was, like, very actively listening to what the other characters were saying as they were saying it, and trying to, like, derive meaning from it, but also role play as my, like, character that I was trying to portray. That was so cool to me, and that worked really well. That was one of the most shining aspects of the game for me. And just overall, the story, the way the story is delivered is very cool. And I like the writing. The characters are likable. Even the villains. Like, what the fuck is the guy's name? Like, G or something? The Russian dude was very cool. Yeah, the interrupting mechanic was so awesome. And you're a very active protagonist. You don't get that much. There's a few choices here and there that you get to make in the game. You don't get that much. There's not, like, big branching paths or anything. But I enjoy that your character can actually have some variance to how they respond to the world around them. And it makes it so that on multiple playthroughs, you sort of discover different things about the character and about the world that are very interesting. Then mechanically, the game is so fun. Just like Hotline Miami, it has instant kills. Like, you kill most enemies. I don't think there's any enemies besides bosses that take more than one hit. And that is just so satisfying to me. Dunkey was talking about this at one point. He was like, the one-hit kill is just so innately satisfying. The visual effects and, like, the blood splatter that goes in the direction that you slashed them is so cool and so satisfying. The game's got a lot of sort of, like, this is the sort of game where I almost feel like I want to say it has tonal issues, but it all worked for me. It has a bit of a sense of humor. There are funny parts to it, but they don't insert the funny parts just wherever. They insert the funny parts where they know they can get away with it. And the funny parts are actually funny, rather than just feeling like, I don't know, Vampire Survivors just had like random crap scattered around where it was like that there's just a random joke, okay. But Katana Zero had well-constructed, funny, thought-out jokes that were placed tactfully in a way that didn't like ruin the tone of the game and genuinely made me laugh, and I liked that. I'm sort of losing my voice. How close are we to Among Us? Oh god. I got a lot of games to go through. Yeah, it rides the line well. It's very cool. Gameplay is very satisfying. It's challenging without feeling like bullshit. And then you play hard mode, and then it turns into complete fucking bullshit near the end. Especially the secret boss. That shit was just like, wow, I did not imagine in my wildest dreams that it would become that much more difficult, but it did. But you know what? Overall, hard mode was still a satisfying experience. Most of it wasn't bullshit. It just, like, near the end, it was like, whoa, holy fuck. It just got insane at a certain point and kind of frustrating. But overall, hard mode was still an enjoyable experience. Hard mode even adds a couple of new enemy types that sort of make you rethink how to play the game. And let me tell you, after doing hard mode, going back and playing the normal game, it feels like you've taken off the ankle weights and you just absolutely fucking wreck everything. Not to say that I am a flawless player in normal mode. There are still some hard stages and I still die quite a bit, but it's so much, it's such a relief playing the normal game after playing hard mode. The bullet deflecting mechanic is so cool and so satisfying every single time you hit it. I love the slowdown mechanic. I think the slowdown mechanic is a great approach to difficulty, because if you're Joseph Anderson and you can never be satisfied by something that isn't the most CBT bullshit you've ever experienced, then you can just refuse to use the slowdown, or you can turn it off in speedrun mode. But if you are a normal human, then you can use the slowdown, and it's still very satisfying to use and still requires some skill, you know, managing your Chronos meter and stuff like that. I love the replay system. I love all the weird fourth wall breaking type moments throughout the game that I don't even really want to spoil, because there's just so much cool stuff that happens. Very neat game. Very, very cool. And the one weird thing is that, like, certain story threads just feel unfinished, and it almost feels like, and I know about the DLC before anybody fucking pipes up about it, it kind of feels like maybe they were making a longer game and then realized, oh, we don't have, like, the funding or, like, time to make the rest of the game before release. We're just gonna lop off that part of the game and then just release it as DLC. I have no idea if that's true. That is complete baseless speculation. That's just a vibe that I get. But there's just certain unanswered things that feel sort of unsatisfyingly left dangling off, and we're just sort of sitting here waiting for the DLC to answer some of those questions. I don't know. Maybe they were planning to do that from the start. But to me, it kind of feels like they maybe didn't originally intend to leave those plot threads dangling off like that. But, oh yeah, an amazing soundtrack. Amazing soundtrack. Just so good. Just so fucking good. I don't think it's as good as the Hotline Miami soundtrack, but that is a high fucking standard to get to. It is very hard to beat Hotline Miami's soundtrack. Anyway, here I go comparing it to Hotline Miami again. It's hard not to. I give this game like a 9 out of 10 again. It's very, very good. I mean, what are some things I don't like about it? There's a couple of the parts where you're just in Zero's home and it's like, oh, go walk around and like make tea. There were some weird like slow time events where I was like, why is this a thing? Like, I liked hanging out in Zero's apartment and hearing all the ambient sounds and like seeing the reports on TV, and he like falls asleep on the couch to the TV. That stuff was cool, but some of those little intermediary parts were just felt like bullshit, where it was just kind of like wasting your time. Some of the game feels pointless, like the comedy and tragedy masks that like talk to you throughout the game. A lot of the time that just felt kind of like, why is this in the game? They just kind of put this in here to put it in here to make the character seem more crazy. I don't know. Yes, oh god, the stealth section. Thank you, chat. I was like, I'm sure there were some things, there were some issues that that I had with this game. Yeah, the fact that like, I think it's the second level in the entire game has this weird like optional stealth route, and the stealth parts are just so slow and unsatisfying, and it feels like you're at the mercy of RNG a lot of the time if you're not playing unstable seed mode. Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, I almost want to give this one a 9.5. Also, the visuals, the pixel art looks great, but it's nothing like super exceptional. That's one other thing that I would dock just a slight amount of points for. It's well executed, but it doesn't have a super solid like visual style or identity of its own, I think. It's just kind of like, a lot of it just seems like classic, like standard pixel art portfolio stuff. And there's a lot of interesting sort of like effects that happen, like lighting. There's like lighting on the pixels, which I feel like I rarely see in pixel art games. Like, there's that one tunnel in one of the levels that is like rainbow lighting, and as you're walking through that, you can see like the rainbow light like dancing off your character's sprite. That's very cool, but I feel just the visual style of the game could have used a little, could have been a little more unique. It just kind of feels like standard pixel art a lot of the time. Okay. I just need to, I've been talking so fast. Just need to catch my breath, maybe drink a little bit of water. A little bit of water. Sorry, I just need to fucking relax. I'm like starting to lose my voice. Ooh. I'll try to at least get through Untitled Goose Game. I don't know. Maybe I'll cut it off at some point. Okay, Closure. I have a lot less to say about this one. This is a puzzle platformer with a very unique visual style. It's all black and white, and a very unique mechanic where everything the light touches exists, everything that light is not touching doesn't exist. And you have to navigate these levels carrying these little like balls of light. And it's very cool. I think the game could have been shorter. This game was based on a Flash game of the same name that I never actually played all the way through, but I played it a little bit on Flash Game Friday. It is a neat game. It is not an exceptional game in almost any regard. Some of the puzzles are kind of frustrating. The whole format of like a puzzle platformer means, and specifically with the way this game works, a lot of the time you will play through a level and you'll solve like 90% of a puzzle, but then you'll have no idea what to do at like the last part, and you just keep dying over and over again trying to do different things. And every time you die, you have to re-solve the first 90% of the puzzle. And that just ended up being kind of frustrating to me, especially on some of the later levels, and in particular the last level. I just looked up the solution because I was like, this is such an obnoxiously long level, and I don't want to have to trial and error this while it's wasting my time every single time I have an error. It's got basically cool music, but the music is often grating and annoying because it's just on such a short loop. I think this game could have done better with like some more ambient kind of music rather than melodious. Or if it wanted to keep the melodious music, maybe it could have longer songs or something. I don't know. Because I think like 2 out of the 3 main areas just had fucking irritating music, in my opinion. And the visuals are cool. This is a game, you know how I was saying that like Bastion has plenty to say. Katana Zero has plenty to say, I think, like morally and stuff. Closure has nothing to say, even though it kind of hints at it here and there, that it might have some sort of like meaning or message or intent, but there is nothing beneath the surface. It is just surface level, which is fine, but the game itself is not so exceptional that it can just be carried by the gameplay either. It's got a really unique core concept that carries it for a while, but I've played this game twice, and the first time I played it, I didn't actually beat the game, and the second time I played it, I had to force myself to beat the game because it just got so boring and tedious and frustrating that I just didn't care anymore. And especially the fact that like to get the real ending, which gets you almost nothing, the real ending I think just says the title of the game and then gives you credits. You have to like get all the what you at the time thought were optional collectibles throughout the entire game. So it's like you go through the whole game, you get some of the optional collectibles maybe, but not all of them. This is how I did it, at least. And then you get to that final door, and it's like, oh, surprise, you need all the optional collectibles to actually see the fucking credits. And it's like, well, now I'm either just going to give up playing the game because I don't care about doing that, or I'm going to have to go back and resolve, like, half of the levels while you've already solved them, trying to find these like extra collectibles. I don't know. It just felt kind of sloppy, and like this game could have had a lot more substance to it. Oh, it says ongoing. I just realized. Let's fix that. So what do I give this game? It's got some cool stuff. In the end, I'm going to give it like a 5.5. It's neat. It is functional. It has some unique things to it. It's got a bunch of references to like Newgrounds Flash games, which is kind of funny. This game contains a reference to Aether, and Aether contains a reference to this game. Fun fact. Edmund Macmillan's Aether. No, would not recommend. But maybe if you just play the like first 3 worlds, it's a basically enjoyable experience with some flaws. But playing the whole thing as a whole, like, it just is kind of rough. And like I said, like, insubstantial. I don't know. Okay. Little Inferno, this is one that is very fresh in my memory. This game is basically a fireplace simulator. It is made by the same people who made Human Resource Machine and World of Goo, and probably other games that I can't think of at the moment. It's a neat little casual game. Almost no challenge to it besides like finding combos, which is like burning different objects at the same time. And the game gives you a list of combos, and they have some name that hints at what the combo is, and you have to figure that out and burn these 2 objects together. I have an issue with the combo system. Let's just get this out of the way. Usually the combo is either completely obvious and requires no thinking, or I feel like I had no way of figuring it out sometimes. Or or like it's so tricky that I just can't wrap my head around it and I just have to look it up, or it's just some reference that personally I don't understand or something, you know. It never felt like the combos were like, okay, this is a compelling puzzle where I have to think about this, and that's like fine. It's not that kind of game, but I think every single time I've played this game, I've ended up just looking up a list of the combos because I didn't care to just try random bullshit when I don't know what is going to make a combo. Does this or does this not include the Ho Ho Holiday DLC? That's true. I have not updated. Here, I'll copy and paste the thing from the main spreadsheet. Oh god. Yeah, you know, actually. And it's going to be hard to talk about the DLC because the DLC of this game is such a weird format. Overall, I'd recommend the game. Maybe I'll just also I'll have an addendum about the DLC after. But this is just for the main game. The game is fun. It's funny most of the time. Some of the like references and stuff and like humor sensibilities are a bit like dated and like cringy, but for the most part, it is a fun, entertaining, funny game. Maybe has a bit of a childish sense of humor at times, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The fire physics in this game are really well done. It's like if you're going to make a game where the primary thing is burning, then make the burning effect really, really good. And they made the burning effect really, really good. It's amazingly rendered virtual fire. It's not like fucking perfect or anything, but it is very good. It is satisfying to burn things and watch them crumble to ash. This is a great game for pyromaniacs. My biggest issue with this game is the fact that you have to wait when you order. It's like you order things out of a catalog and they get shipped to you and then you burn them. And you have to just sit there and just fucking wait while things are shipping. And like, yes, you can go to the combo list and like look at combos and try to figure out other shit while you're waiting. But I would love to like find me somebody who, while they were playing this game, not once had a moment where they were just sitting there fucking waiting for something to ship with nothing else to do. Like, I feel like it's almost inevitable that there will be a period in time for basically everybody playing this game where you will have just a certain amount of your time just straight up wasted by the fact that this game goes, oh, you ordered that item? Cool. Have fun just waiting like a full fucking minute because you ran out of coupons and you have no other objectives to do right now. So you're just gonna sit there, just like fucking look at your phone for a while, asshole. I don't know. That aspect felt like it could have been handled better. It's just that's like a minor gripe. It's not a huge deal, but whenever it happened, it was just annoying to me. And especially like it gets more egregious as you go on later in the game, as things take up more and more time to ship. That's just a gripe that I personally have. A lot of people were like, Grapefruit, you're an asshole. That's not a real issue. Whatever. It's an issue I had with the game. Overall, it's pretty fun. I would give this game like a 7.5. It's pretty simple. There's not a ton to talk about. It's got a story running through it, but it's kind of dark, but kind of a light story at the same time. Like it's dark, but like humorous, in a way that, I don't know. It doesn't like weigh heavily on your soul or anything. It just has a bit of a dark, like Tim Burton-esque tone. Now, the Ho Ho Holiday DLC is it's a strange beast because it's like an alternate campaign for the game that is almost entirely the same, except the ending is slightly different And instead of talking to Sugar Plumps the whole game, you talk to 8-Bit Nate the whole game. And he has like a different storyline that goes on, where he basically gets Scrooge pilled and Santified and loving it. And they added one extra catalog that is like holiday themed stuff. That's about it. And there's Christmas lights instead of the curtains that you get halfway through the game in the classic game. It's very strange. I struggle to think of a game that has done DLC in this format. And personally, it was really bad timing for me because I had just replayed the game like a month, not even, like, you know, days before they announced that there was going to be a Christmas DLC. So that was just kind of like unfortunate timing. I got some comments on the video that were like, dude, you can't hate on the game for having like bad timing considering your personal playthrough. And like, I want to make it perfectly clear, at no point was I ever blaming the game for that happening, but I'm allowed to be a little grumpy that accidentally happened anyway. Like, of fucking course, obviously it's not the developer's fault. That would be ridiculous to think. Obviously it is not their fault, but it was poor timing. And I think, you know, it is still, irregardless, it is still a bit of a wonky formula for the DLC. And I think a lot of people were probably expecting something that would just be a quick little thing, little side thing that they could do in the game. Or, you know, you can boot up your old save file and just try out these new Christmas items or whatever. But no, you have to replay the entire game. It's a little clunky. It's a little strange. But it's not like... The DLC is just like an alternate way to play the game. It doesn't really add or take away much. It's just slightly different. You know? Okay. So, Goose Game. I could probably get to Among Us in this stream. Let's see. Well, I'm checking my phone. And I advise you to do the same. I have to pee. Untitled Goose Game. This is a fun, cute little comedy game. It's worth saying that I played this in the multiplayer mode with my boo. And I think from what I've heard, playing it in multiplayer is just like explicitly easier than the original game. So maybe I would have got more like frustrated at the game if I had just played it single player and had to do everything without the advantage of just having a second goose to just distract people when I'm trying to like do tasks and stuff. But at its core, this is a comedy, funny game. And I think it succeeds at being humorous. Yes, this game has a dedicated honk button. And I think this game... This is maybe going a little too deep about this, but this game perfectly encapsulates the relationships between geese and humans. Where geese are there to, like, geese and humans very rarely, besides, like, hunting, I guess, they very rarely physically damage one another, but they are constantly at odds with one another in like, you know, rural societies, I guess, where geese annoy people, people annoy geese. They have very different goals. This game humorously gives you a list of things to do that are all just basically sowing seeds of discord between people and slightly inconveniencing them in various ways. And I just think that's so funny. I think that perfectly gets to like what the perceived attitude of geese is. Because like a person, your average human being, no matter what a goose does to piss them off, they're not gonna sit there, they're not gonna like fucking throttle a goose and like tear their fucking head off or like kick them or whatever. Unless they do something like really bad. But you can just irritate people as a goose. I don't know. I think this is a well-done game, well-conceived. It's got a funny title. I don't know why I guess they just couldn't think of a title besides Untitled Goose Game. The joke being that it's like fucking Triangle Strategy, but self-aware, basically. Yes, it's a cool game. Fun to play in multiplayer. I think that's a good addition to the game. I can't really review the game as a single-player experience, but it's clear that it has... I mean, we still had to solve plenty of, like, puzzle-esque stuff. I just think it would have taken longer playing it single-player. I don't know. It's neat. It's a neat game. Nothing too exceptional. It looks quite good. It's got a nice little visual style. Just distinct enough. And it also has cool dynamic music. I think this is something that I've not really heard anybody talk about in regard to this game. But the dynamic music in this game is great. Really well done. It's just got this like piano playing over it basically all the time that grows in pace and complexity depending on like the stuff that you're doing, and then just becomes this sort of like ambient, nice little lilting thing when you're just walking around. It's very cute. It's a very cute game. That's I don't know. It's about irritating people, but it never feels like super mean-spirited or anything. It's just like, isn't it silly how geese are assholes. I don't know. Probably also a 7.5. That one, of course, the conditional formatting is not going to work. There you go. A goose did this. Okay. These I'm going to be able to, like, blow through a little quicker. This was from Spooky Whack Games. Did I really only play 4 Spooky Whack games? Is that real? I guess I did. Yeah. Okay. So, Devil's Tuning Fork, this is an echolocation game. This game was pretty bad, honestly. This game, like, I guess won a bunch of awards, but I don't really see... The people who gave it those awards were, like, on crack or, like, had never played a video game or something. It's not terrible, but it just was nothing exceptional. It's a game where everything is pure black, and you need to use this, like, visual echolocation in order to see the environment around you, and you solve various simple puzzles using your echolocation ability. It's got this, like, embarrassingly poorly drawn intro and outro cutscene that, like, open in a separate window. It's very janky and weird. About, like, children are going into comas across the country and nobody knows what's happening. And I really felt like that was it. Like, that was the whole story. You get, like, tiny little snippets of, like, child dialogue throughout the game, repeated ad nauseum, like the same voice lines over and over and over again. You hear these, like, ghostly apparitions of, like, child voices. But it never felt like... This was another game kind of like Closure, where it felt like it was sort of hinting that maybe there's a deeper meaning to it all, but there was just nothing under the surface. Or at least I couldn't find it, or couldn't figure it out. Maybe I'm just too dumb. And then it just had a couple technical issues. It had this weird thing where every once in a while it would, like, reset the direction I'm looking in. It's a first-person walking simulator, basically. First-person puzzler. It would, like, reset the position that I was looking at and, like, make me just walk off a cliff every once in a while. And the variation of the puzzles was almost nothing. Like, to my recollection, and I played this pretty recently, it had several different, like, levels, but for the most part, there was, like, 2 or 3 things that you just have to do over and over again. Like, you have to fire at these bells, then you have to fire at a mirror that's aimed at the bell, then there's these floors where you have to look and see what tiles you're going to fall through if you step on them. And I think, like, that was all the puzzle mechanics. They weren't really used in that interesting of a way. The story didn't really have anything going for it. I would not recommend. Give it like a like a 3.5. I don't know. I know I said I'm never supposed to like think about the like comparing the numbers, but I'm just looking back at Affinity, and that's an unfair score for the game. Give it like a 4.5, and give this fucking one a 3.5. It was just kind of lame. Oh, but then of course, yeah. Let's copy and paste another one. Sometimes the conditional formatting breaks when I copy and paste things into this list. There's a couple echolocation games. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Let me, I actually, this is so weird, but I have a list. I hope I didn't delete these. Yeah. Dark Echo, which is like a top-down version of like a similar concept. Stifled, which is like a horror version of this concept. And then Pulse, which I know almost nothing about. And then there's Beyond Eyes, which is about a blind character who has to like paint in the world. And I don't think they're actually using echolocation, but whatever. And then there's also Ink, Super Pig, The Unfinished Swan, and Scanner Sombra, which all have a similar thing where you like, those are different though. Those are like, you have to paint the world around you rather than using echolocation. Okay. Graveyard Shift 2 Double Boned update. This was a very silly game with silly music and silly graphics. This is your classic, like, sort of rudimentary Unity game. I don't know if it's actually in Unity, but it has that Unity game vibe. It's an arcadey-style experience, and I think it has multiplayer. I never actually tried the multiplayer. It has, like, online multiplayer, I think. And it has a dedicated doot button. You play as a skeleton that's protecting a graveyard from kids that are trying to, like, knock down the graves in the graveyard. The graves all have, like, unique jokes on them, I think, or, like, jokey things. It's not a completely, like, unfun experience. Like, I remember getting slightly absorbed into it, and there's, like, as the game goes on, there's, like, different enemy types that you have to learn how to deal with. You basically just punch them until they fall down, and then you pick up their bodies and throw them out of the graveyard. And you can, like, throw bodies into other enemies, and it, like, knocks them down, and you can sort of, like, go bowling for people, basically. It's kind of fun, but it is pretty insubstantial. It's just kind of like, oh, you have, like, maybe 15 minutes of fun, and then you go, okay, that was that. I don't think I would recommend it. It's not really worth seeking out. It's just a basic first-person... It's like a tower defense game, basically. This one's also hard to rate. I don't know, like a 4. Give it like a 4. I guess it was fine, but nothing worth playing for any long period of time. Okay. Yeah, you're not supposed to focus... Don't focus on the numbers. The main part of this... The numbers are just kind of for fun, and a lot of times, especially, like, I feel like with a more... like traditional, like, yes, this is the length and polish that you've come to expect from video games, like Bastion and Katana Zero. I feel like the number rankings are more, they matter a little more on those games, whereas shit like this, it's like, how do you rank this? Sometimes, like, yeah, it's definitely a flawed thing, but like ranking like Mario games by number, I feel like is a lot easier. And then you just have like random bullshit that is difficult to rank like that. But that's not supposed to be the focus of this. The focus is that I'm just saying out loud what I feel about the game. And the number is just supposed to be like a general level of my impression of the game, or the amount of fun that I had with it. Maybe the amount of enjoyment, I think, rather than fun. Anyway, Bon Bon. This one was, to my mind, kind of your stereotypical indie, like, itch.io horror game. it is. This didn't really do a lot for me. It was basically cool. A lot of the game was just kind of boring because it's like you play it from the perspective of a child, and a lot of it is just picking up toys and putting them away simulator, which was not particularly enjoyable to me. All the parts of this game that were like trying to be spooky and scary were pretty cool, but a lot of the game was not like that. It's like basically you're this kid and you're trying to go about your basic everyday life, and this big rat creature keeps like harassing you in various ways. And it had some theming. There was, there's that whole sequence where like you're being read a bedtime story that relates to like the big rat creature, and then it turns out, spoilers at the end, that the rat is just this little like pet rat that the kid is scared of, I guess. There's a cool little dream sequence in there that I think was the highlight of the game. But overall, it was just kind of a slow experience where it was just tiny little bits of cool stuff sprinkled in with a lot of just tedium. On the fence about this one, but I don't think so. Give it like a 4.5. See, the conditional formatting worked on that one. Okay. This game was very cool. I thought this was very interesting. 1,000 Heads Among the Trees. It definitely had some issues. This game definitely looks like, if you just look at like screenshots of this game, it just looks crusty and bad, I think. I think a lot of the human models in this game are just like default models that somebody like downloaded off some sort of like stock 3D assets website. But there were actually a ton of cool things in this game. It was like the strange small subgenre of photography games where you take pictures of things, and it's basically like you're going through, it was like in like Mexico or something. It's like a person traveling in a foreign country. I forget what country. It wasn't Mexico. But maybe it was, I don't know. Some like foreign nation that is like less technologically, is a city that is less technologically advanced than your typical like American city, that's for sure. And you're going around at sort of dusk, talking to people and photographing like weird shit happening. And there's this unique mechanic where you can take a picture and show different NPCs the picture, and they will have unique stuff to say about the subjects of that picture, which was very cool. And there's just a lot of like weird, spooky, sort of dream-like shit that happens in the game. I almost don't even want to like spoil the specifics of it, but there was a lot of cool like visual effects that happened. It had a really nice tone to it. I think this game had a really cool, sort of spooky, desolate, but in a sense sort of like cozy tone. It's hard to describe. But also like hostile. I don't know. It was very strange. This game made me feel a lot of feelings, and it was just very cool. I don't think I remember that many like specific details about it, but it was just such a cool, unique experience. It was something like when I play whack games like this are what I'm really looking for. In particular, is stuff like this that just has a bunch of unique, weird mechanics that make you think. So yeah, and it's very unpolished. It's very jank. It's your classic low development cost, low polish indie game. But it just had a lot of cool stuff going for it, and it was tonally very interesting and was sufficiently spooky. I don't know, like none of these, like Bon Bon was one that was trying much harder, I think, to scare you, but 1,000 Heads Among the Trees was one that stuck with me more, despite it felt like trying less to actually scare me, and it just had a solid spooky tone that really stuck with me. I don't know. I'm talking in circles. It was in Peru. There you go. So yes, get ready for it to be unpolished and jank at times, and there's a couple of stretches of road that just feel like total downtime. But there were lots of cool, unique mechanics to it that made it a really interesting experience. Give it like a 7, maybe, I think. I think that sounds about right. Okay, and I am done. I've been going for 2 hours. We didn't even really review that many games today, but we got through some meaty ones. This whole section right here, this is a lot of substantial shit, and we did Black Mesa. And next stream, I guess I will review... There's going to be a couple of random games. But then I will just clear through all of these bullet hells, because I just want to get them all done in one big chunk. I will end up comparing a lot of these to others, because a lot of them are so mechanically and aesthetically similar. But, you know, some of them are pretty unique. But that's it for today. We are getting there, folks. We are getting towards the end of that list. And that is satisfying. So here. That's where it stops, and we got just a little bit more to go. Pretty exciting. I wonder if I'm going to be able to do all the Street Fighter series in one stream. Maybe. We'll see. Because a lot of these, like the fucking Tiger Electronics games and the Whack-A-Mole game, I don't know. Those are going to be easy to review. Okay. What do you say we go raid somebody? Let's go... Is anybody streaming right now? Mike is playing You Laugh, You Lose. Let's just go raid Mike. Fuck it. Okay. Oh yeah, you guys can't even hear him. Alright. So, hope you guys got a kick out of this. I will try to do... again, I'm trying to sort of... I think I've been on a pretty regular schedule of doing these lately. And we're about to get to the part that is... we're about to get to the good shit. I think next stream will be a lot of games that most people don't give a shit about, because it's a lot of bullet hells. I care about them. There's lots of great games in that list of bullet hells, but I think a lot of people aren't going to give two shits. But then after that, we're going to get to... the meat of this list. So let's go raid Jabroni Mike, and I hope you guys have a lovely night. I have nothing left to say. Goodbye.